Good afternoon, Tampa Bay. We are back again at the World International Headquarters of the duPont Registry. It's duPont Registry Tampa Bay's newest version of a podcast. Everybody does podcasts, but not everybody does Tampa Bay Talks. I'm here with David Warner, our editor-in-chief, the guy who's responsible for content on our website as well as in our magazine. I only just make sure the pluses and minuses come out at the end.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, very much. We have a really exciting thing to talk about today. The duPont Registry Luxury Living Tampa Bay Summer 2020 issue. This one right here, Healthcare Heroes. It was a full month and a half ago we came up with this idea. We went to the couple of people involved in the upfront care for people who are injured and sick in our community, particularly those with a virus. And we said, look, we want to make a tribute to the frontline workers, the healthcare heroes. So we even went so far as to get a gatefold and a message on the inside from Baycare thanking the community. And we have some extraordinary pictures inside. We are proud, humbled, and very enthusiastic that we were able to put this issue together so quickly in the middle of all of the social distancing, quarantine going on, and get an issue out there that really pays tribute to those who've been taking care, particularly of those who've been affected with COVID-19, but everybody else as well, because people do get sick even though they don't have a virus.
Well, it's ironic coincidence, actually, that way before any of this happened with the virus, we had scheduled a health and happiness issue for this period, for our summer 2020 issue. And as it happened, health and happiness are on all of our minds, or lack thereof, right at the moment. And so there are lots of changes we had to make in the content that we were going to include, but in many cases, these things were going to continue to be relevant now and in the future. Many of the stories we covered, maintaining your health and your happiness is of course, year-round endeavor. And so some of the stories, and this is an interesting story. If I can just get
right
to
it, David.
This was a story about a couple, and we were going to write about their lifestyle. It's Lauren Davenport and Daniel Fernandez. They run a communications firm in St. Petersburg, and they decided, well, we don't need to have a permanent home. We're going to become nomads. We'll depend on Airbnb and frequent flyer miles and live all over the world and still do our business from afar. And that was going to be an interesting story about how one couple became happier through doing a different thing with their lives. But in the course of this, they got stuck in Morocco because of the lockdowns due to COVID-19. And it's a fascinating story about how they together figured out a way, because of their experience as communicators, to help themselves and a lot of other tourists that were stuck in Morocco to get out, to get rescue planes, to have the word spread about their presence. They've done media all over the world, including the New York Times and many other places. And since returning to Florida, when they quarantined themselves for 2 weeks, they've been able to get other people out of other places, Guatemala, other places where tourists were stranded because of travel restrictions. So it was a nice and happily a happy ending kind of confluence of things, this story.
So they're back here, and they're about to embark on another trip around the continent.
Yeah, they're just going to do, their plan is to do all 50 states in 365 days and try as much as possible to keep everything local. Buy local, stay local, any possible way they can help the local merchants any place they stay. And we're talking about the possibility of continuing that saga with DRTB.
We hope to follow them on this trip. They're going to be going. I think the word is small town USA. They're going to go.
So, yeah.
They're going to go find the big cities, but they want to stay with local people, learn more about local culture, local events, and local characters. It's going to be fascinating to follow them. One of the other stories that's in here, and by the way, an important switch in the way we produce information for all of you. We recognized at the beginning of the crisis that people needed information and probably needed a lighthearted story or two immediately, not waiting for every other month for an issue to come out. So we started to roll out on our website, duPont Registry Tampa Bay.com, all kinds of interesting information and stories, information about what restaurants were closed, what were open, what were serving takeout, what were now wide open again. Of course, we have the additional story of Weekend Wheels, which goes on all the time. And Weekend Wheels has been focusing on a number of issues. Danny, just pick it up and hang it up. So the phone's ringing in our office. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, we were focusing on these issues. We even produced a story on the internet about recommendations from a qualified healthcare provider on how to care for someone who came down with COVID-19 and was in your house, and how to treat them if they did not need to go to the hospital, and how to quarantine them and separate them from your house.
And that was from her own experience.
Yeah,
her
exactly.
husband.
With her husband. And then we had a wonderful story about the new process of buying a car. A part of our Weekend Wheels write-up on how you can go in and interact in a car dealership, find the car you want and actually touch it and know that it's safe. Some of the local car dealers have done a fabulous job at making the experience not only worthwhile because you get a new car, but worthwhile because you feel safe and they understand what the pressure's on right now. And an interesting story. Now, the important one.
Well, this is another
Quarantine diaries.
example of web content that became print content. Excellent writer, a friend. He is also married to a writer who has contributed to duPont Registry Tampa Bay many times. His name is Joe Barty, and he, for the first time in his life, was out of work when he was laid off from his job in a marketing firm. And so that meant that he was, for the first time, going to be a stay-at-home dad. And his struggles with that are humorous and poignant, and sometimes they make him very angry, especially if he's trying to navigate the state unemployment debacle, which I don't know has yet been solved for him. But there's a series of excerpts in this issue, and you can read the full-length entries in his quarantine diaries, essentially confessions of a first-time stay-at-home dad. I think all of you, no matter whether you're stay-at-home dads or by yourselves or with just your partner, I think you'll find things to identify with in these series of entries.
There's a wonderful group of stories in here, but I want to make sure we go right to the back of the book while we're talking. We took parties and people, our section in the back where we featured all the galas going on and the events and people that were attending them, and people wanted to be in the pictures, and it was great fun to always be part of those events. Not too many events right now. So we were considering just dropping the section when we discovered there's something going on in this community that's extraordinarily important, and that's people helping people. And we started to gather together photos of people helping people. We have the Singer sisters delivering masks to the elderly residents of Bel Air. We have Martha Thorne's food drive to get lunch to the hospitals. We have the Crown auto dealerships delivering a whole meal to the hospitals. We have a picture of the DeBartlos who made that fabulous grant to Tampa General Hospital. What a terrific section for us. We're getting a bigger reward out of this because it was sure good to show pictures of people having a party, but to actually show our community at work helping others, people helping people.
Well, it was a
stories.
Natural evolution, really, because those galas that we feature are mostly for helping other people out by a silent auction, buy your tickets to the gala, raising money for nonprofits that are doing good. In these days, they've taken out the middleman. There aren't that many galas happening unless they're virtual, and so people are going directly to the helping and handing off. We have some pictures from Feeding Tampa Bay, which this is still going on. They call them mega mobile pantries, which is an expansion of their usual pantries. And here's Mayor Castor took part in that when they did it over in the HCC campus in Tampa. They did one at the Trop in St. Pete, and I just read today that they're expanding it to other counties around the Tampa Bay area. The need is still there. It's not going down. Wherever you can help, whether it's Feeding Tampa Bay or St. Petersburg Free Clinic or Metropolitan Ministries, the food needs are just going to keep going up.
It's interesting. We live in a community that is so based on volunteerism and reaching out, lending a hand to those in need. Tampa was well prepared to take care of a disaster that we're facing with this virus, and everybody just seemed to drop everything and go to work. We have a terrific story on back page. I probably shouldn't brag about that one too much. But
nah, go ahead and brag.
Enterprising young lady decided that maybe she could find a lot of people that could get their sewing machines out and make masks, and not make 10 or 20, but how about up 2,000, 2,500. Molly DuPont Schaefer started the system up, got a bunch of people involved, got them on the internet, and basically started a grassroots campaign to make masks, deliver them to the hospitals, to the RCS, to the different venues around the community, and help to get those masks out there. Now, they're not Schedule 95 masks. Some of them are quite colorful, but they work. And now the regulation is right there. These people have been making masks for months. The regulation is right there in front of us that you should wear a mask. So she hit it out of the park.
Right.
And it's been a wonderful story. She put a lot of miles on her car delivering masks.
She's a force of nature, Molly DuPont is.
Yeah. You're very kind. Now, David, talk to me about this one, essential oils.
Well, this is one of the things that I thought was really striking than Joe's story, and a lot of the stories in this book, of how many are about relationships, about either couples or families that through their combined talents are finding ways to grow their businesses. And this is really the story of what happened with the Zest Zone, which is a business of selling essential oils, and I'll explain that in a second. It's run by Eileen Mitnick and her wife, Allie Baldwin. They discovered they used to run a bed and breakfast in Massachusetts and were using oils in aromatherapy, but discovered a whole new world when they were introduced to a company called doTERRA, and now they're like passionate sort of advocates for the doTERRA oils. And this is a story about how that came to be, what their benefits are, what they can claim, what they can't claim, and some personal experience that I had with some of the oils that they shared. But it also is very much a story about these women's partnership in business and in life, and it's very encouraging and heartening kind of a story. I think that's true. And even in another story we did about the growing cannabis industry here in Tampa Bay, we were looking at a couple of cases in which couples opened these businesses together because of health issues they were having. This is the medical marijuana business, which is, of course, legal if you've got the right card here in Florida. And Julie Garisto did a great job of looking at that. If you go to the story online, it's even more expanded, and it tells some of the sort of very colorful, even sordid history of marijuana regulations and things in Florida, in particular Ybor City. There's a murder involved, so I recommend you find it online if you haven't read it already in print.
And let's not forget our style section. We're very lucky to have Michelle Capelli head up our style section as our style editor, and that would be on page 27 for you ladies just ready to jump in. Get the virtual magazine up and take a look. She's got to keep it simple. Life is pretty complicated, but she just gives you some hints on how to dress and some other things that are stylish. And you can go right to her website and buy it online and not even have to move out of your house.
I will say that in the age of Zoom, I had not actually met Michelle in person until we did a Zoom conference. And it's nice when your style editor embodies what she's talking about. She's one of the most smashingly stylish ladies I've ever met. I've only seen her on Zoom, so I'm sure in person it's even better.
She's wonderful. She's wonderful. Now, we know we're spending a lot more time at home. We've all been doing that, and so one of the things we were concerned about is what's your backyard look like? I mean, maybe it was a mess, and now it's a beautiful garden. You fixed it up. But we wanted to talk about an article in a magazine called A Whole New Playground. and it focuses on some pretty darn fancy high-end pools and pool deck areas out back. Give you some ideas on what you might do with your house, right down to having floating chaise lounge in the pool.
As one does.
Got to
yes.
have it, you know.
This is a credit to one of our frequent contributors who was even more frequent for this issue, Eric Snyder, who was on the home front, literally. He did a series of stories called Shelter Upgrades about pools, about home audio, about the home office, and because so many more people are working at home. Talked to the designer at Space and the designer at Ethan Allen to talk to them about what are some of the ideas of making your home office more comfortable and also more Zoom ready, because most of us are showing our lives via Zoom, and that you got to get your bookcase game going. We also did a story, or I did a story about, speaking of dealerships, it was interesting to talk to Don Strollo, who is the founder of RV Superstores, which has recently been purchased by RV retailers, so it's bigger than ever. They've been discovering whole new ways of selling RVs because of this health crisis. He hadn't been something they had done before, but they're now doing virtual tours of RVs. Rather than going to the dealership and walking around from one to another, you can call up 7 RV virtual tours and tour them all from the comfort of your home laptop. And the other part of the reason we covered Don Strollo, and I think it's important as part of what we're talking about with the public and its generosity, is the amount, the great generosity he has shown towards his employees, but also toward the Make-A-Wish Foundation and some other really important local nonprofits. He has a actually rather touching story about why giving back has been so important to him from the time his parents founded this company and his father before that was a police officer way back many, many years ago in Albany, New York.
So the RV business, I think, is going quite well right now because people are thinking about alternate forms of travel. You don't have to get on an airplane. You don't have to stay in a hotel. You take your living room with you, and off you go. And
find yourself a campground that's open, and that's more and more of them are opening now. That would be a good way to go.
You only need to go venture a little east of Tampa to know where it seems like the epicenter of RV sales is. Right there's RV1 and the Airstream store. Remember the old days when the Airstreams were stuck in the ground out there?
That's where this store is now.
That's where the store is now, and it's quite the spot. And it's those gleaming silver trailers as you go by. It's pretty fascinating stuff.
Oh, yeah, I love them. But I think one of the things that we found in the course of covering this online before it went to print was that the president of the U.S. Travel Association lives in St. Petersburg. And so he had a direct line to talking to the White House about what travel professionals and the travel industry was hoping to see. Of course, they're hoping to see more travel. But I found in reading this and reading Megan Padilla's story about the future of travel a certain amount of optimism that, when this is over, the travel will happen again. You will go hit the road again. But there's some really good advice for you traveling at this time about travel insurance, about experts that could advise you on destinations now in this story that Megan wrote. So I would check it out if you're planning a travel even in 2021.
Now, if you're on our website regularly, you know there's features there that come up every week, primarily weekend wheels. Howard Walker, who is the expert on exotic cars and transportation, does such a great job for us on the internet. But we also have a column in the magazine DR Auto. And this issue, Howard went mainstream, practical, but also special because the Kia Telluride is featured. And it is one of the most popular, hottest selling cars in the country. And Howard gives it a rave review, says it's comfortable, it's a little bit sporty, it's not a Ferrari, we know that, and that it's very practical. And not only that, it's good looking. So be sure and read that article if you're in the business or in the market for a new car. You want to check out Howard's articles. You look at the others too to see if you need a Bentley or a Rolls Royce.
Right. I would say about Howard, one of the other great things about him is that he mostly takes his own pictures for these stories online and in print, and he chooses locations which you probably will recognize, and if you don't, to see if you can figure them out, because many of them, as in the case of the Kia story, are in front of some of the well-known murals in St. Petersburg, and he gets across the bay as well to Tampa and down to Sarasota, Manatee.
So, David, tell me what a mocktail is.
Well, this is an interesting phenomenon that our writer Catherine Mitzies wrote about, which is the trend toward being what she says is sober curious. Okay, how much alcohol do I really need in my drink? And can I have a good drink that doesn't necessarily have any alcohol or has very low alcohol content? And because of that trend, which you're seeing, online as well as everywhere in restaurants, she talked to some excellent bartenders in the area, including the head of the bar program at Rooster and the Till, which is one of the top restaurants over there in Seminole Heights, about some of the routes they took. We have a recipe for a cucumber cooler, which is a non-alcoholic drink, which looks beautiful and sounds pretty tasty. You can make it for yourself at home. It requires making your own Thai basil simple syrup, which is not nearly as complicated as it sounds, and it's a good. I mean, as people are more health conscious for the health and happiness issue, they seem to make a lot of sense. Well, what are ways I can still have fun, drink something that's cocktailish, and still have a good time without getting schmackered?
So, a lot of good suggestions in this issue. A lot of good stories about Tampa Bay and the people that inhabit this community, an especially poignant story about healthcare heroes. We owe a lot to these ladies and gentlemen who have staffed the hospitals, the back office, as well as the front lines, to keep everything under control for the last 30, 60, 90 days. We're going to need them in the future, I think. This is probably not going to go away totally in the blink of an eye, but with a little bit of care by the general public and a lot of care by our emergency responders, we should be just fine. This is going to be some interesting times for us. DuPont Registry Tampa Bay will be ramping back up its Tampa Bay Talks. We'll be doing it on Tuesdays. We didn't do it Tuesday this week because, as we all remember, Monday was a holiday. We get our American flags out and honor those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for the benefit of this country, to which we are indebted for our wonderful communities that we all live in. So we're on Wednesday. Next week we'll be back Tuesday. We'll be doing Tampa Bay Talks, our newest version of our DRTB Live. We think it's a little more relevant, and we'll be chatting with different people around the community. In the meantime, go to the website, DuPontRegistryTampaBay.com, and take a look at the magazine. Take a look around the community. These magazines are in the mail. And if you need a subscription or you want to make sure you get every issue, you can send some information into info@DuPontRegistryTampaBay.com. We'll take care of you right away. David, what else we got on the editorial list?
Well, one thing I just want to alert you to is we've tried to, in the last year or so, amp up our arts coverage. As it happened, the entire calendar that we had in our most recent issue, the March-April issue before this issue, every single event on that calendar wound up getting canceled or postponed. And that happened after we went to press. But and I have been doing the Weekend Top 10 every weekend, sending people to events, arts events, entertainment events, other kinds of events, sports events. And a lot of them, of course, are not happening as they'd expected to happen. But there's a lot of great stuff happening online. So we have a virtual arts guide in our Weekend Top 10 every week. There, in this particular issue, there's a list of great ways to find arts online, many of which are still happening. And I think if you're sheltering in place, you can't get out, you're longing to be at a concert or a play, you've got a ways to go before those things will happen in person. But you still can sort of have a certain amount of a vicarious thrill by watching what these different organizations are doing online. And some of it's really, really great. I mean, it's sort of a new way of enjoying an art form which you didn't think would work, but in many cases it does.
Well, the benefits of digital media.
Yeah,
absolutely. So we'll be back with you next week. In the meantime, we want you to go out, be safe, stay healthy, wear your mask, keep 6 feet away, and enjoy the community. And
we're like family,
among other things. dine outside. One of the great things you can do now before it gets too hot. We got a couple of weeks left before it's going to get blistering around here. And you get the opportunity to go enjoy a nice meal at downtown St. Pete, over at the Armature Works, up in downtown Clearwater on Cleveland. They've shut the street down, opened it up for dining and casual outside activities. Really makes the community come together, I think.
Yeah, Hyde Park Village in South Tampa was happening this past weekend, pretty much 6 feet apart.
Pretty much. And have a good time on the water if you're out on your boat. Be safe, and we'll see you next week. So, from David Warner and Tom DuPont at the DuPont Registry Tampa Bay, go out and make it a great day, Tampa Bay.
Great to see you all again.